Hello, today we'll be speaking about DLP for cloud email. It's a new product from Forcepoint. And my name is Kevin Oliveira. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for the Data Protection Services, which include data loss prevention, or DLP. I also have Mark Denton on the line who will be helping us through with this demo. Mark, maybe could you give an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kevin. So yes, I'm Mark Denton. I'm a sales engineer at Forcepoint, and I'll primarily be here to do the demonstration.
Great, thanks, Mark. So anyways, what's going on fall of 2021 is we are coming out with several new features which support the idea of DLP everywhere. And that's one of the key themes of our product, the Forcepoint DLP product, is that we want to make it available to places where people actually work and everywhere the data resides. We strive to reach those two objectives, and we feel that in doing that, we've created a very strong DLP product for the market, and are able to help data security admins and data security personnel just to be able to do their job efficiently. Today, we're going to be talking about this first one, DLP for cloud email, where people work. And so here's an example right here. This just gives an example of the different channels that Forcepoint DLP does cover. And we do cover endpoint, which is typical for most DLP solutions. We also do cover cloud and cloud applications, the web, your internal network, the activity of data in rest or in motion or in use. And we're adding here email. So you see that as one of the channels that we're adding to fill out this ability for being able to be wherever our customers are working. Email is an interesting DLP channel, and it's an important area when it comes to security. This is a quote from IDC. It just says email is the most popular threat vector for attackers to use for delivering malware to an organization. Email is also a direct line of contact between users and cyber criminals, leading to billions of dollars of fraud and business email compromise every year. So it really is. It's seen. This is from an IDC report, but then it's widely understood through the industry that email is a important channel. It's an important vector to be protecting. And particularly with respect to DLP, what often happens, there could be it could be just some innocent person who's they open up an email. It's a phishing scam or some type of someone externally trying to get data. The response, they may attach a document or click a link that will attach a document, and then that document will be sent out. And what we look to do is to provide DLP at that channel so that can be stopped. We can stop the important data and files at that vector. So what we're going to do now is switch over to the actual demo of this cloud email. Mark will be taking that.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. So yes, in this session, what I'd like to do is show you the DPS service. So in other words, DLP for the email channel, and in conjunction with our cloud email security service.
And DPS, again, that stands for Data Protection Service?
Correct. Data Protection Service, for the, as I say, for the network email channel in conjunction with our cloud email security service.
Okay.
So there could be multiple different starting points that customers have when they may be considering this particular feature or this particular service. So it could be an existing Forcepoint cloud email security customer. So they're already using Forcepoint to do the hygiene of their emails, blocking any emails that may potentially are malicious, or they've got spam related content, etc. Or it could be a customer who doesn't have email security from Forcepoint today, but maybe the biggest concern is the email channel from a DLP perspective. It could also be an actual email security customer from Forcepoint, but they've got the on-premise versions today. So maybe they've got on-premise appliances or our hybrid service, where we've had DLP for email for several years, but it's been a bit of an inhibitor for them moving to a pure cloud service, as we didn't have the DLP capabilities in the cloud equivalent. And of course, finally, there is customers who are already using Forcepoint DLP, Forcepoint Data Security, maybe to control their endpoints or maybe for controlling data being uploaded to cloud applications. And they now want to extend those capabilities to cover the network email channel.
Great. So which one will you be demoing today? Which type of customer?
So we're focusing on customers who are looking to extend coverage to the email channel, or maybe are is an existing cloud email security customer.
Okay, but they definitely, this is right now we're looking at someone who is a customer of Forcepoint DLP, and then looking to extend it into our cloud email product.
Absolutely, that
Right.
that sort of customer profile will absolutely fit into this demonstration.
Okay.
The starting point here is to log into the cloud security portal. This is where, for example, an existing Forcepoint cloud email security customer would log in to administer the email policies, or potentially a existing cloud web security customer would log in as well. So I will import my login and password. Hopefully correctly. Okay, so we've now successfully logged into the portal. So the starting point is we need to make sure that this particular feature or capability, the DPS service, is actually licensed. So from the account menu, I would move to my license screen. Now again, depending on the starting point of the customer, would depend on which options are actually selected on this screen. So Forcepoint has been very kind to me in this account. As you can see, I've got lots of modules actually licensed. If it was an existing cloud email customer, then they would see the Forcepoint email security cloud license is ticked. And then the modules or the add-on modules would vary depending on the specific requirements. So for example, they could have the advanced malware detection for the email channel. They might have the encryption module or the image analysis module. But most relevant to this particular demonstration, we need to make sure we have a license for the add-on module of Forcepoint DPS, which we can see we do have here.
So typically then, for this situation, this is a customer who had the existing email security product from Forcepoint for the cloud. And now they're moving over to our new DLP for cloud email. And so then that's where the new thing that we'll be seeing that will be ticked off is the Forcepoint DPS, right?
Correct, exactly that.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, great.
Once we've had the feature correctly licensed, we will see a new menu option appear for the data protection service. If I select this option, the main thing that we need to do is, as part of purchasing that license, the customer will receive a configuration file. And what we need to do is browse and then upload the file into the portal. What that configuration file in essence does is it actually links together this cloud security portal with the data protection service. And the result of that is that when an email is passed through the cloud email service, it will then be sent for analysis into the data protection service, so we can check to see if that email has any content that matches a DLP policy. Once, in essence, we've integrated the two services together, the final part of the configuration within the cloud security portal is to move into an email security policy. Now you can see here we've only got a single policy, which is not untypical, because you can have a single policy which monitors and manages many different email domains. Now, if I actually select the policy, the actual tabs that we see on the policy will be dictated by which licenses a customer is actually consuming from Forcepoint. So in other words, if they're only performing outbound DLP, then we will see the data protection tab and some of the connection tabs. If we're also performing both inbound and outbound analysis, so in other words, we're blocking inbound emails because they maybe got malicious content or spam content, that kind of thing, then you will also see things like antivirus, URL sandboxing, anti-spoofing, etc. But from a DPS,
this is folks like you're saying, if it was the just DPS with connections domains, then they've gotten the Cloud Email Plus or Cloud Email service, DLP for Cloud Email. If they chose the DLP for Cloud Email Plus for the inbound, then they would see the antivirus, the sandbox, the anti-spam. Those would then be ticked off.
Correct. They would see if the customers
present
Cloud Email Security and DPS, they would see exactly what we see on the screen at the moment.
Right. Okay.
Because then we're performing both inbound and outbound analysis on those email messages.
Right.
So from a DPS perspective, Data Protection Service, all that we need to do is select the Data Protection tab and then ensure that the Data Protection Service has been enabled, and then specify which analysis mode we would like to perform. Now, in the majority of cases, certainly in a production environment, we would select enforce, which means that if we analyze a message and it contains content that matches a DLP policy, then we can enforce the policy, which more than likely will be to probably quarantine the message or potentially encrypt the message. The monitor option is probably the more for, say, an evaluation period where somebody wants to just look at the capability of this new feature. So once we've made these slight changes in the portal, the next thing that we need to do is look at this now from a data security perspective. So what I'll do now is actually switch to my Forcepoint Security Manager. So this is the management console that any of the Forcepoint data security customers will be using today to implement data security policies, manage any incidents that are created, and so forth. So I will log into the FSM. Now again, this would depend on the starting point of a customer. For an existing data security customer, the chances are they will already have some data security policies in place. And that's exactly the situation for this particular account. So I can move to policy management, DLP policies, and then manage policies. And we can see here, there are a number of policies that are already in place covering things like inappropriate usage, confidential warnings. We can search for content related to credit cards or financial information. And as we move down, we've also got policies related to PII in multiple different countries.
One question on Mark, I just noticing down the list, there already was a email ticked off there. There was as one of the drop boxes. So was there already some email? It says email addresses. So was email addresses, was that already being included in a policy somewhere else, just not through the email channel?
No, so as you'll see in a moment when we actually look through the options and the properties with it inside an actual policy, or I should say a DLP rule, there are various different capabilities that you can add. What this is actually showing here is that we've got classifiers that will specifically look for certain email addresses. So this might be where we've got concerns about maybe an employee sending messages, for example, to a competitor. So we've defined the email addresses we are specifically monitoring. We've also got policies that will look for situations where an employee is sending emails, maybe from their corporate email account, but to a personal one. Because again, that could be an indicator that a user is trying to exfiltrate data for some future usage where they've now got data in the Hotmail accounts or the Yahoo accounts, that kind of thing. So that's more really about where the email is going rather than monitoring the actual email channel.
The channel, right? Okay.
Okay. So what I'm actually going to do here is a situation where we're extending an existing capability to now cover the network email channel. So if I look specifically at the policy related to UK PII, we can see inside that there are a number of different rules that are looking for different types of content that's PII related. So we can look, for example, things like bank account information, driving licenses, NHS numbers. And specifically what I'm going to look at here is a rule that's looking for passport information number and associated UK names. Now, if I actually click on the link for the rule, as I say, we can now look at the options and the properties available to that specific rule. So first of all, we have a description. So it tells us here we are looking for passport numbers in proximity to related terminology, and also we expect to see a UK person's name. And of course, we can see that the rule's actually been enabled. The actual condition, in other words, the classifier or the information, the content we're looking for, we can see here is using a predefined classifier from Forcepoint that knows what that kind of information looks like. Now, we can use the classifier as it's provided, or we can be more specific. So, for example, we could change the threshold and say, you know, one record is business as usual, so we could increase that threshold to 3 or 5 as the situation dictates. Now, specifically for the email channel, we can also say, well, does it matter where we find that content? You know, maybe it's a different situation if we find that content, for example, in the body of an email, as opposed to if we find it in an attachment to the email. And you can see that Forcepoint provides that granularity for when we perform the analysis. However, I will accept the defaults and I will say, do we find the information anywhere inside an email message? I'm now just initially going to skip the next couple of tabs and focus on the destination tab. So this in essence is the enforcement points. Where is Forcepoint going to look for this content from a data security perspective? So we can see here that we're monitoring in conjunction with our endpoint if anybody copies any, for example, files that contain this kind of content to removable media. Similarly, what if a user tries to print, for example, some passport records? And as I move up the list, we're also monitoring DLP cloud applications. So if anybody, for example, has a file containing this type of content and they upload it to something like Dropbox or Microsoft OneDrive or Google Drive, that kind of thing. We're also monitoring content being uploaded to sort of generic internet websites. But most importantly to this demo, you'll see there's an option to monitor the network email channel. Now, at the moment, that isn't selected, but now we have the license for Cloud Email Security DPS, I can actually select to monitor that channel.
So again, these other ones we've just been looking at, the reason why they are checked is this customer has all of those other products. They have DLP endpoint, they have DLP web, they have those already. And so that's why they're able to do it. It's just now, you can see the email, you wouldn't have been able to tick it unless you'd purchased the product. And so now we're able to use email as a channel.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Right, okay.
Okay, now, so we know what we're looking for. We know what type of content. We now know exactly where we're going to look for that content, which channels, which enforcement points. The final thing is, if we actually see that activity, so in other words, somebody does send an email through network email and it contains that content, what action would you like Forcepoint to take? So first of all, we can base it around thresholds. So, you know, if we see one instance, we can say it's medium severity. If we say maybe 3 instances, maybe we'd say that's a high severity or critical, something like that. But we can also specify what action we're going to take. So if I click on the action plan, again, specific to the demonstration we're performing here, for the network email channel, what we're going to do is quarantine the message. But again, for a customer who's already monitoring, say, the endpoint with removable media and printing, etc., and maybe uploads to cloud applications, you can see that we can perform different actions for different channels and different enforcement points. Now, similarly, I suppose we've always got a situation where maybe the end user doesn't know that they can't send this content through email. So do we actually want to send any form of notifications? Should we let the end user know why this email potentially has been blocked? And we can see here that I am actually going to send an email notification. So once I've configured the policy changes, and in essence, all I've actually done here is selected that I also want to extend this rule to cover the network email channel. I can now click OK. I now need to choose deploy. And specifically what's happening here is, first of all, that policy change is being stored to the Forcepoint database. And secondly, we can see that that change is now being synchronized to the various different enforcement points. Okay. And the key thing for this demo, and we just wait for the bottom option to be successful, is we're actually, there we go, we've now got a success, and we're actually now synchronizing this policy change to the data protection service. So we're now in a situation we can now test and see if that policy will be successful. So I will now switch to my test client. So I will log into my mail client, and I'm going to use Microsoft Outlook. I'll generate a new message. So I'll actually send an email to myself. Okay. Okay, so there's nothing in that email in its own right that would cause a policy to be triggered. But what I will now do is attach a file that I know contains some passport records and associated terminology. So when I click send, the email will get sent by the mail client. It will now go through the mail server, but it's now going to get passed to the DPS service. And the DPS service will now analyze that message to see if it actually matches any of our DLP policies. And you can actually see we've now received a notification message to say that the message has actually been quarantined because it matches a policy. So the first thing I can do at this point is switch back into our cloud email security portal and do a search of the logs to see if we've now got a record of that message. Now, as you can see, there's many different search criteria, but to keep it simple for this demo, I'm going to say, I'm only interested in outbound messages. I'll search the last hour. And I'll clear all the other criteria and just select anything that matches a DLP policy. And hopefully, we should get some results back. And sure enough, that's the message that we just tried to send. New mail for you. We can see who the message was from, who the intended recipient was, but we can also see that the message was quarantined because it's matched a DLP policy. Now, I can actually click on the subject and actually see the message in its entirety. So we can see it was a very basic message, but if I click to view the log, in other words, the analysis that was performed by Forcepoint, and move to the bottom of the screen, we can now see, first of all, that the message was submitted to the DPS service for analysis. The DPS service has advised us that there was actually a DLP violation, and as such, it took the action to quarantine the message. Now, if we want further details on why the message actually triggered the DLP policy, what we'll actually do is switch back into our DLP console. So this is where we configured the policy earlier, and this is where we would search for any form of DLP violations, regardless of the channel or the enforcement point. So what I can do now is run a DLP incident report just for today. And sure enough, we have an incident created for the activity that was just performed. In other words, the outbound message was quarantined. So we can see who the source was, that it's matched the UK personal identifiable information policy, as we know. It was identified through the network email channel, and that the action taken was to quarantine. We can also see what the triggers were. So here it's now highlighting that we've got some UK names, some related terminology, and some actual passport numbers. And if we look at the properties, it's telling us that we're monitoring the network email channel, that the analysis was performed by the Data Protection Service in conjunction with the Forcepoint Email Security Cloud Service. Now, as I mentioned earlier, oh, sorry.
Sorry, just, yeah, so specifically as far as what triggered the enforcement was it was within that policy. It had, it was looking for passports, UK passport numbers, and so particularly UK passport support near UK names. So that was what it was looking for, and that's what it found. And so that's what blocked. And then the outcome was a quarantine.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Now, of course, in a normal production environment, we would expect to see more than a single incident. And of course, as more emails get through the system, then I'm sure we would analyze more messages, we'd find more DLP triggers, and more incidents will get created. But the nice thing here is what we're actually talking about is extending DLP capabilities to additional enforcement points and channels. If I change the report and say, well, I want to extend this report to cover off, say, the last 3 days, you can see now we've got more incidents that's been created. So the top entry is where we're monitoring the network email channel. The next example is where somebody has tried to copy a file to removable media. That file contains some credit card information. And what the Forcepoint DLP solution has done, specifically the endpoint control, has said, well, you can copy that file, but we'll ensure it's actually encrypted. And then the third example is where a user has tried to upload some confidential information over a secure web channel to an internet website. So you can see within a single incident report, we can get the full picture as to what's happening within the environment and within the organization across multiple channels from a data security perspective.
Okay, thanks, Mark, for that that demo of DLP for Cloud Email. We also do have some additional demos that are available around a couple of other features that have come out in Q4 2021 for DLP, Forcepoint DLP. It's run around Office 365 granularity. And then we also have another one around REST APIs. And it's a real interesting one showing how we're able to do incident management from third-party tools. So that's also another one that's available. And again, thanks, Mark, for your help today. And again, for anyone watching this, if you want just a straight demo of Forcepoint DLP, that also is available. And we welcome you to try that as well. Thank you.